Rick Hanishek, Paul Peterson, and Ludger Wussmann have been trying to really address Mark's question, I think, about to what degree do we really have a performance problem at the high end? To what degree is there a global achievement gap? You said you have a sense that there could be, but you want to see some data. Well, this is an attempt to provide that data, and it does it by looking at the performance of students in the graduating high school class of 2009, both in the United States as a whole and in specific US states, and in all the countries who participated in the 2006 PISA exam. So it does this by drawing on data from the 2005 NAEP exam, which was administered to 8th graders in the US in 2005. The PISA math exam was then administered to a representative sample of 8th graders in the United States in 2006. If we assume that not too much changed in the world between 2005 and 2006, we can use that to draw on information from the PISA exam on how other nations are doing to really compare how the US is doing in terms of bringing students to very high levels of accomplishment, of academic accomplishment in math. By high levels of accomplishment, we simply define that by talking about the share of students who's performing at the very highest level on the National Assessment of Educational Progress that the governing board has defined as advanced. Now, there's a lot of controversy over that definition of accomplishment, whether the board has set too high expectations, but that's the expectation we're going to use, and we'll just compare how other countries perform against that expectation. The logic of the equating exercise that we have to perform, because the other countries obviously don't take the NAEP exam directly, is fairly simple to understand. There's actually some complications in the background involving the different sampling frames used in the two exams, but the basic logic is fairly straightforward. We know that 6% of American students performed at the advanced level on the 2005 NAEP. We also know the following year that 617 points was the lowest score received by anyone in the top 6% of American students on the PISA exam. So then we can look at the share of students in other countries who perform above that level, right? And so, for example, in Taiwan, it turns out 28% of students perform at that level as compared to just 6% of students in the United States. The assumption that we're obviously making here is that the NAEP and PISA exam items are both drawn from a common domain of mathematical knowledge. And that is an assumption that some psychometricians would raise concerns about. But that being said, the performance of international students on different international exams, like the TIMSS and the PISA, tends to be very highly correlated, suggesting that these international assessments do tend to be measuring the same underlying constructs, and that this approach may not be bad from a first approximation. So what do we find? Each of these bars represents a country, or in the case of the red bars, an American state. And the height of the bar shows you the share of students who are performing or estimated to be performing at the advanced level or higher on the NAEP. So Taiwan, the figure I gave you before, 28% of students. And that goes down Hong Kong, Korea, Finland, Switzerland, and down across the rest of the chart to where we have the cutoff here being the United States average, that's 6%. So Massachusetts, the highest performing US state by this measure, has about 11% of its students performing at the advanced level. That's just behind Austria, just ahead of Slovenia, actually not distinguishable from those two, but actually statistically distinguishable from the top 14 countries. So that's how our very best state is doing internationally. If we go down further, here's the rest of the data, and you begin to see a lot more red than blue, right? So if you want to, I'll let people pick out a few states where I know we have people from. Colorado, first of all, just at the US average, just below Lithuania, just above Russia. We also have folks from Hawaii, just above the level of Uruguay, and just below that of Turkey. There are a handful of OECD or of PISA participating countries that are at even lower levels, countries like Mexico and Brazil that have been cut off here. But this basically is the full spectrum. And at least to me suggests that there is another achievement gap that we need to be paying attention to.